Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram and Eric Matthey. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Simon.
You seem disappointed. That's not the way to start the first podcast of the year.
I can't get it right, can I? Sometimes I sound slightly effeminate.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Hello, Simon. Hi, Simon. How are you doing, Simon?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Well, let's say hello to Eric. How are you, Eric?
Hi, Simon. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. And this is our first show of 2021, which is, as we've already decided, is going to be a far better year than 2020, hopefully. And we're carrying on from what we did in our last audio podcast. I say audio podcast because we've sort of had a bit of a meetup in between now and our previous show where we had the world premiere. I think that's how Americans say it. Premiere? Is it something like that? We say premiere.
Premiere.
Oh, there you go.
I like yours better.
Okay. Well, we had a bit of a get together for watching Eric's feature film, where he made a starring debut as he rode slowly and he took photographs across Arizona and such. And we did that as a Google Meet before and after, and we streamed the film in our Facebook group, and it, jolly good it was too. And I think it was a good experience for everybody that could make it. Sorry for those people that could not watch it because they don't wish to have anything to do with the evils of Facebook. Completely understand, and perhaps Eric, totally. You might want to do a quick explanation why we had to do it that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, a little bit of echo there, Simon, but yeah, I mean, we sort of had because Adobe owns the movie, I can't really, and it's not in distribution anywhere, I can't really show it anywhere without A, their permission, and B, someplace where it could possibly be pirated or copied or whatever. So for better or worse, the Facebook Large Format Photography Podcast group kind of allowed us to show it in a walled garden where we could control who saw it and not allow any repeats or anything like that. So there were a couple comments on the 35 mmC article that I wrote about it, and one in particular was pretty caustic, and it's totally fair. Like, Facebook and social media is pretty bad in a lot of ways, but my counter to that is that it's also good in some ways. Like, our little community wouldn't exist or wouldn't have happened without Facebook. I wouldn't have met you guys without Facebook, or been introduced to all sorts of people around the world without it. So it's really a question for us, like, going into 2021, how do we deal with the crappy parts of social media, and how do we maximize the good parts of social media? So I just answered the question and went 20 steps further. Sorry about that.
No, not at all. I just felt that we probably did need to just touch upon that. So this week's show a little bit different from what we've done, or very similar to what we've did last time, in that we just want to get a few things off our chest, catch up on some of the things that we've been doing, and also talk about the future direction of the show as Eric zips his jacket up really loudly.
I'm preparing to get it off my chest. Sorry.
Exactly. There you go. So, but before we get onto that, let's head over to the Fens and see what Andrew's been up to.
Well, 101 ways to do things without leaving your house, really, I think, mainly. So I'm 2 weeks into semi-retirement, adjusting to doing all kinds of things that don't involve what I've done for the last 30 years. And I have to say, I'm not into any kind of routine yet, but I've had a couple of days in the darkroom working on a project, which I just want to talk about in a minute. What else have I done? I've started thinking about moving. I've started thinking about enlarging the darkroom. It's been so cold to get out in the garage outside, which is where the darkroom is. it's too cold to go out there and work. So, but I'm basically going to make it probably 4 feet, 5 feet longer. That'll allow me to eventually have probably just one person in there with me safely, without sort of falling over each other. And particularly as we're still likely to have some degree of COVIDity going through the year. So, yeah, getting used to that. The idea is I have a day out in the fens working on photographic projects, so pinhole, large format film, lensed cameras, and then a day in the darkroom. But I don't feel I can really go out in the, we're not far, within a few miles, but it's not really exercise, is it? And I know fishing's allowed, which I note with interest. You can go fishing, but I don't feel I can just drive out a few miles into the fens with my large format camera and take pictures. So I've been stuck in really thinking about stuff. I've read a few books, listened to some cricket, and I've been thinking a lot. And I've written down on my little notebook here, pressure to post to social media. And then in the next sentence, I've written down, hold back on images and projects as they may change. So I've kind of touched on this before about, in fact, a hashtag I've started using, which I made up. I think I made it up, is hashtag shoot less, print more. And I, like many others, I'm happy to admit that I feel a pressure. Is it a pressure to post? Certainly, I think so. Part of it could be a human desire to crave likes and people to acknowledge the stuff you're doing, because it kind of reinforces it, hopefully in a good way. People will tell you it's crap if it's crap, I hope. So I was looking at some negatives today from 13 years ago, which I just discovered I hadn't done anything with. They were pinhole negatives taken in Venice, and some of them were sort of accidental double exposures, which made them kind of quite arty looking. I think they were accidental. I can't actually remember. But I've scanned them all and I thought, I'd love to share these. I thought, no, actually, you know what? Because I'm not sure what I want to do with them. They would make ideal candidates for my little lith print series, and I think they'd print up really well as lith prints. Everyone seems to be putting zines together now. I've not done one, but it would make a nice small zine with maybe some words, some prose or poetry next to them. That's another idea. Or do I just bung the stuff out there, on social media to feed the need? So that was my sort of philosophical thought. And you're welcome to comment.
Well, I think for sure, like social media, the whole thing about social media is getting the likes and even incendiary comments or whatnot, is it feeds into, like, it creates dopamine in your brain. That, like, it hits the same addiction center that most hard drugs do. And that's just the science of it. And that's what makes it so addicting. That's why people have to hit Facebook. That's
constantly going back to your phone and checking things,
Yeah. And that's why the echo chambers are so self-fulfilling, right? Because you go back to the echo chamber and you're just getting all the things that you feel you need. And we can go for days about how terrible this is for society and bias and, conversations on difficult topics. But that's not really that's something we should probably go into. But in terms of producing work, like I will agree, like, as people start to find me on Instagram and follow me, I realize I'm not really putting out any work or doing anything. So or like they're joining the Facebook group and looking for Eric's work. Like I'm not really putting much up there. You can see photos of bunnies and like, me drilling wood, making some lenses here and there now and then, and like dealing with having bought a house. And I'm like, I should probably start posting work, right? You? Yeah, exactly. And that's the question. Like, should I? Because I'm not really producing any right now. But at the same time, it's like, if you want to produce work consistently and be known for the images that you make, if that's what you want, right, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, the more you do, the more you do. And whatever feeds that, if it's the dopamine from posting on Instagram and people like it, right? Then is that
But
a bad thing?
it's so ephemeral, isn't it? It's like it's gone. You post it there, and you have a couple of days. If it's a striking image, whatever a striking image is, and I think in Instagram, it's probably something that hits you between the eyes. There's no subtlety perhaps involved. Then it's gone in the wind. It's ephemeral. It's within a few days you've got to feed that beast again.
Yep. 100%.
And so what value and meaning does it have? You see, I mean, the one thing I've cleared all the decks in the darkroom now, and I've got those pinhole negatives, and they're probably going to be the next project. But I've been working on my 2016 America road trip pictures for the last, since I came back in 2016, quite frankly. But now that's all I'm now concentrating on. So the time I've spent in the darkroom, about 3 days since I've finished work, has been printing some Yosemite pictures. And yesterday I was printing an image that I made on the way to Furnace Creek Inn in Death Valley. It was an image in a petrol station, gas station. Anyway, it's a very striking print. I'm very pleased with the print, but I've got no desire to share it at all because I'm working towards this project, and the prints are going to be 12. Well, they are 12 inches by 9.5 inches, fiber paper, and then I'm typing up my notes. I've shared some pictures of my typewriter. I'm typing up the travel notes because I made notes, and I'm typing up those notes, and it's all going to be in a box. I'm putting it in a box, and that's going to be a project for me and for the family and for kind of posterity. And some images I've shared, but I'm getting such a kick out of doing that I don't really, the value in that is, to me, it's not really to the whole wide world. But while I'm doing that, I'm neglecting the beast that is Instagram and Twitter and stuff. And I'm unsure how I feel about that, really. Simon, you don't take any pictures, so you presumably not an issue for you.
I'm taking lots of pictures of cameras and objects and things that I've made, but yeah, I'm not. Actually, no, I did put something up. I think last week, and it was a digital photograph that I'd taken with a Mamiya press lens that I'd managed to adapt to my Sony. And it was a case of, I was just looking at it. I'm thinking, I've not taken a proper photograph of anything for ages, and it's cold out there, and the light seems to be okay, a little bit harsh, but surely there's something in the garden with the frost on it that's got to be worth taking a photograph of. And I found a hydrangea that still had a bit of colour in it. So yeah, that was like one of the first photographs of something that I've taken for ages. But I've even got photographs that I've got negatives that I've not scanned yet of a trip that I enjoyed, and I've shared one photograph of it some time ago. It's the photograph that's got the wet twig in it, in a waterfall, and I really like that photo. And I used
wet twig picture I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. And I used ADOX CHS-2-100, which is currently my favorite film. I'm not really sure why I'm saying it's my favorite film. I think it's because I like that photograph, and I'm thinking that actually looks like I wanted it to look straight away without having to mess about with it. So that makes it my favorite film. And I've got, I think, about another 4 shots that I've taken, which I don't even know what they look like. I've developed them, and they're still sitting in my Combi Plan tray there that I use. So I really need to develop them and perhaps share them. But let's think about being driven by social media to share things. I mean, I absolutely get what you're saying there. I tend to go hot and cold on this, and there are times where I just disappear off social media when I know that perhaps I could do with putting something out there, and I just blow hot and cold on it. I'm never quite sure what I think of it, because there are times where I put things on there for commercial reasons, because I've got a new product and I want the world to know about it. And then there are times when I'm just want to share something, and so I have different emotions and motivations for using social media.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on also how timely the content is. Like I haven't scanned and shared any of the images I took from the Biden celebrations in Oakland, right? And that's timely. That's more like photojournalism. That's really relevant to that moment in time and right then and there. And I shot them, I developed them right away. And because you're in the midst of move. I just haven't scanned them, haven't digitized them at all, and it sort of feels like if I share them now, they're nice images. Some of them are really great images, I think, but they're stale, right? Compared to the event in which they recorded versus like a scenic or, a still life or whatever. Those are timeless. You can share them whenever the hell you want. Like El Capitan is a timeless place. It's classic, and you can share those images whenever the hell you want to. But like, photojournalism or documentary has a bit more emphasis on its position in time when they were shot, right? So
that's a topic that I'd like to pursue when we have our next guest on, which we won't necessarily talk about. But that the guys on next has been making very significant historical pictures, for many, many years, and I think that's a really rich vein to pursue. But unless you've seen one or two posts on Facebook, you won't know who we're talking about. Can I just also say one quick thing, Simon?
Mm-hmm.
It's large format related. My 90mm Fuji lens, which I'm holding here in bits, there's a bit of it, has a Seiko shutter. I don't know if they're prone for problems, and I don't know what I did to it, but it now won't cock. It just won't cock. It's stuck in the closed position.
Sounds like you've broken it.
Do you think so?
That's
a technical term.
Yeah.
I messaged Lyndon of Londinium Cameras, and he says, well, I'll fix loads of Seiko shutters. He says it depends what's wrong with it. It might be broken.
There you go.
Anyway, it's not a lot of use to me as it is. So I don't know whether Seiko shutters are a pile of doggy doos compared to Copal. Copal, is that right? The other ones?
Yeah. Well, it's not going to cost much to just drop it into a second class parcel and
no, I'll send it to
Exeter,
him, and he'll have a look at it. He's good like that, isn't he? And then he'll say it'll cost you £10,000 to fix, or it's unfixable.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I found that large format shutters aren't that bad. They just like at least take the faceplate off and look for something obvious. I mean,
well, I don't know how to take the faceplate off. How do you take the faceplate off?
Or the back, depends on the construction of the shutter, but they're not too terrible to take. Disassemble. There's a point of no return where it gets really terrible, but usually the first layer or two of the onion is not so bad.
So they're not those things that when you take something apart, things spring out
off.
Fly across.
No, it's quite obvious when they're about to spring apart. Like the springs are on posts, and you have to take a spring hook or something small and like unhook it. And then they do exactly that. They shoot up, hit you in the eye. This is why like one of the few times that having to wear glasses to see anything is quite useful to keep small parts from like blinding us. As we ham-fistedly take them apart. Well, you may not want to do that. Okay.
I think I don't want to deprive Lyndon of his livelihood. And why would I want to sit here and try and take this thing apart?
I mean, you could also break it worse and have him have more work. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, he does. He talks about having received things in the post that have clearly been worked on by either the person sending it, because there's like a bit missing or something.
His phrase is called, I've had a bag of camera.
Yeah.
I actually have that exact same scenario where I very ham-fistedly thought, oh, this won't be so bad on a Pentagon 6, that the film counter wasn't working properly. And I was like, oh, just don't do that. It's going to be something simple in there. Not realizing that on Pentagon 6, the winder and film counter down there is hideously complicated. It is a giant penis. And I cocked up the cocker. It's bad. Mm-hmm. So I just put it back together and said, in a non-functional form, and said, I'm going to send this to my buddy Shane. I'm going to send it to somebody who knows what the hell they're doing.
I think that's good advice, unless you're really sure.
So, yeah. So it was bad. It's bad.
So what have you been up to then, Eric?
Well, no shooting. I realized the other day I haven't shot a single frame of or sheet of film since in about 2 months now, which is really depressing. But but things have been happening since then. Like, we moved into a house, sort of dealing with like that whole like settling in period. And in the meantime, on the podcast with Wayne, his offhanded comment of, well, hey man, we were thinking about having him build a lens for us, became quite real. And so I've been obsessively compulsively researching materials and bits and bobs for Alana's 8x10 camera lens for her. The Old Home Place is the working name of the title. It's gonna be a hell of a project. Like, actually, like hearing her talk about it, it's really fascinating. I think it's going to be massively impactful. Like, in a nutshell, her great grandfather was born into slavery in what I don't know the name, so I'm going to call it Plantation A on one side of town. And directly across the street was Plantation B. And as a teenager, he started sneaking across the street to Plantation B, fell in love with the white plantation owner's daughter, and they ran away to Pennsylvania, where it was legal for them to be married and a black man could be free. This is pre-Civil War. And that's the start of her family. And she had no real idea about this until she went to visit a couple of great aunts who still live on property A, the old plantation. And so, like, her family background has one half of the family owned slaves and the other half of the family were slaves, which is just a mind-boggling thing to like process and sort of have to deal with. And that's where the project stems from. So yeah, a light project. So she's going to go down there and record oral histories and take portraits and take photos of the cabins that are still standing. And the camera itself is either going to be made from or decorated with iron and wood from those slave cabins from that plantation. So I've been, the last 2 weeks in particular, I've actually been working on building the lens, cutting the lens barrels out of wood and doing design. And I got a drill press, which I'm very excited about because I can actually... I
saw that. Yeah, but you can see
it's very impressive.
Yeah, I can actually do good cuts instead of doing it by hand, which is just a giant pain in the butt. I'm not a podcaster now. I didn't swear. I'm impressed with myself. You didn't have to bleep me. But yeah, it allows me to cut a fairly exact holes, which is like, especially for lens barrels, and like 56 millimeter elements and that sort of thing is really, really useful. And I can do the work in like 1/10 the time that I would have taken with a hand drill. So
yeah, hand drill and a file, just because you can never find a hole cutter quite the right size. So you're then having to try and file with a half moon file round and round, trying to get it to stay circular.
Yeah. I mean, even in this case, the glass elements I'm using are 56 millimeter in diameter, and the best Forstner bit I could find is 55. So I still have to like hand sand out 1 millimeter in the barrel to get the press fit for the glass elements for the achromats. But it should be fun. Like, I've never done genuine wood finishing before, so or inlay. I'm going to do both on these lens barrels, and this will be a convertible lens, so it'll convert from a 360 millimeter French landscape or a single meniscus lens, as you all know it, to a 2-element quasi Petzval with water drop apertures in the middle. You just have to bolt the back to the front and put it on the camera and just unscrew it, and so it'll be convertible from a 360
when it's joined
to
together, it becomes one lens, and when it's separate, it becomes just the single element one.
Exactly, right. And using those two lens designs because when her great grandfather was born in 1836 or whatever, was still a slave, those would have been the predominant lens designs of the time, right?
So you built them into a sort of convertible lens.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Or I'm trying to. I haven't finished it yet. This might take a few iterations to get right, but so that's I'm not producing photographic work.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I was going to say, don't apologize for not making images or shooting, as you refer to it. Don't apologize for that, because sometimes time away, you're focusing on your friend's project, and that's just so worthwhile, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't wait to have her, like, maybe 6 months or 9 months down the line, when she's got some images produced and the 8x10 camera under her belt a bit. It'd be really interesting to have her on, I think, because she'll have gone from nothing to an 8x10, and that's a big jump. That's like the deep end of the pool, and on a project that's pretty monumental and important, sort of blurs the lines between portrait and landscape and documentary.
Yeah.
So,
Simon.
Okay, well, what I've been up to on the large format side of things, on just, as I said earlier, I'm pretty much making things rather than taking things at the moment. And I've been saying I've been going to do this for so long, and I've actually almost done it now. So I suppose I could drag this on for a little bit longer. But I've now got designs for several cameras to make lens boards for. So whether that be just like your normal Copal sizes or specialist sizes, but I've also got designs that I'm now happy with for mounting things like aerohectars and projection lenses as well, for that matter.
Nice.
So in fact, I've just put a picture in our group, and I've shared it all over the place. Perhaps I should also share it on the on our Instagram account for the podcast as well, of my micropress camera with the aerohectar attached to it, with one of my two designs for lens boards, because there's a couple of ways. Well, there's probably more than two ways to do it, but I've got two lens boards for an aerohectar. The first of which it allows the lens to sit further back inside the camera somewhat, but to be able to do that, you've either got to modify the front standard, as in to actually enlarge the front standard, because an aerohectar will not go through the front standard of a speed graphic or a MPP micropress, for that matter, unless you do something either with that front standard, which, to be honest, it makes me wince when people enlarge the front standard, because ultimately you're altering the structure of the camera and putting something really heavy in there. So I don't particularly like that way of doing it. So in the case of mine, I've got the file on the lens, and I filed my lens down, which is also almost equally barbaric, except it just doesn't matter. This part of the lens that you actually file down, but you only need to file it down by about 1 millimeter all the way around to make it then get through the front standard. So that's what I did, and that allows you to use a short lens board, and you can balance the lens that bit more easily, or rather better, in the front standard, because it's a damn heavy lens in itself. So you want to get the lens weight as far back, ideally, as you can.
I was going to ask, how does the front standard deal with like lenses that weigh that freaking much?
It does. It copes very well. And well, certainly it copes pretty easily with if you can actually sit the lens further back, because you've got a balance point to fulcrum, haven't you? And you're sitting it further back, which is obviously going to be better. But I've also got another lens board, which, if you haven't adapted the front standard and you don't wish to adapt the lens by filing it down, then the only way to actually make it work, therefore, is to have the whole of the lens sitting forward at the front standard. And you'll see in the photograph that lens board is like 3 times the depth of the short one, because it's got to support all of the weight sticking out of the front of the front standard. And to be fair, it can do it. The standard is whether it be on an MPP or whether it be on a speed graphic, it's man enough to do it. That's not the best way to put it there. It's strong enough to do it without. Well, the thing is, that's one of the things about a speed graphic is that it doesn't actually have front tilt as in going forward, does it? It has rear tilt, rather it tilts backwards. So actually, any kind of extra weight you can actually compensate with it quite easily with that camera, because if it is leaning forward, you just tilt it backwards and you can get it level again. So it does it. There's a fair bit of strain that's going to be put in certain parts of the lens board. Which I've been testing these lens boards, and so far I've not managed to break one in that particular place where the stress is. But that's always going to be the case, because if you're doing what I'm doing, making things out of plastic, then it's plastic's as strong as plastic is. So the gold standard way to do this is doing something with some kind of metal board, but ultimately you're looking at 3 times the cost. So this is a good way to give it a go, and if you like it, then carry on using it, and if it breaks, it breaks. But if it doesn't, then or alternatively, you can go on and use something that's made out of metal, and because my method uses a friction fit as well, which is, I know some people probably won't like that one, but it's absolutely strong enough to hold the weight of the lens in place. In fact, you could pick the whole camera up and shake it around from the lens. The grip is that strong. So yes,
Simon,
that's the one.
Simon, I'm looking at the photograph of the micro press with the red bellows.
Yes.
Is this the camera you tried to sell me a couple of times?
No, it's not. No, the one I've been trying to palm off on you is the baby speed.
Okay.
And to be fair, you kept on asking me about it, and I've been saying, well, you can have it if you want.
I'm a poor pensioner. Well, I'm not even a pensioner. I'm a poor retiree now, so I've got no money. Anyway, so the question is, being unfamiliar with it, so I'm looking at this photograph, and you've got what appears to be. You've got the actual lens adapter in front of the camera, haven't you? And then you've got another one with the lens mounted on the camera. So that thing on the floor which says Forster UK, that's the actual adapter, isn't it? That fits in the front standard.
One of the 2 adapters, yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the long adapter, I think you're looking on there.
Right. So because of what you were saying about the hole in the standard, presumably this Aeroectar lens doesn't have a very long barrel, then it just fits inside this adapter and sits in front of the lens board. Is that right? With
that long adapter, which is the one that's sitting on the table, the back of the rear element is almost level with the rear of the adapter, whereas the short one, the rear element protrudes back and therefore goes into the camera.
And you can only do that if you file your lens down or make some other adjustment to the...
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the one in your photograph is this where you filed the lens down and it's poking into the camera a bit?
Correct. Yeah, but it's not sticking out in front of the camera as much. And the other thing that's there as well is I've made a Hud Cap, not a lens cap, it's a Hud Cap, because it's got like a little bayonet fitting, effectively a bayonet fitting on the hood. And the idea behind that is I've tried to make it so you can, if you don't have a focal plane shutter on your camera and you want to use an Aeroectar with some slow film or paper, or you want to do long exposures, you can use that cap as a shutter. So I've done it in such a way that you can almost like throw it on and take it off without causing any shake to the camera. So
very good.
So that works pretty well.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Large Format Photography Podcast, we do not actually advocate that you pick your camera up by the lens and shake it around to see whether or not it stays on. Just saying.
It's a bit like that advert from I think it was, not sure it was the 1980s. I don't know if you had it in the US or not, where they use some wallpaper wallpaper paste and pasted a guy to a wall, and then picked him up and took him around on a helicopter, just proving just how strong the wallpaper paste was.
I thought it was super glue. Like super glued his helmet to a girder and like lifted the girder up or something.
That'd be a different.
You don't want to be super gluing anyone's helmet to a girder, I tell you.
Yes, and on that note, I think that's a good time to move this conversation on very, very quickly.
Segue.
Exactly, and this we touched upon this last time, and the show has evolved since we started, and is continuing to evolve. And one of the big changes that we made a good while ago was with the formatters, where we had a barroom chat with our guest, and we didn't do formal introductions until much further on. And I think in the early days that was probably a little bit clunky, actually. I don't think we did that quite as well as we could have done. And then eventually I think it sort of started to work. And those conversations that we actually had in that section, sometimes they were actually the best part of the whole podcast. So it's something that I don't particularly want to see the back of, but now that we have Eric here with us on a weekly basis, having that, well, effectively a four-way chat, so the three hosts and the guest having the barroom chat before we actually get around to actually starting to talk to our guest about their work, I think that's just going to take up way too much time. And as we've experienced with Eric on the first time, sometimes we never even get past that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So we've decided, we need to change things around a little bit, because that doing the show in that way, it's just not going to work. And we're still working our way through how we're going to do that. But I think that it does mean that we are going to change things up and jig things around a little bit. And it could be that we may actually do guest shows, and we may do more shows similar in nature to what we're having at the moment. So that we can devote more time to the guest, but we still want to be able to do things like emails, and sometimes we just want to get things off our chest, and it's not always appropriate to do that with a guest. So that's sort of where we're going. So Andrew, have you got any thoughts on that?
I'm with you on the four-way bar chat, even three of us, and I'm guilty for making it stretch really overly long, because I do ramble on. It can distract from the guest. I think it was getting better because the guest was chiming in, and we were bringing the guest in, and it was becoming a good conversation. But it wasn't what we were there to do. We were there to talk about the guest's work. We were there to talk about the guest's ideas and techniques and stuff, but mainly ideas. So you're right. It does kind of detract, I think, from the body of the podcast. I'd still like to be able to do those things in this kind of format like we're doing now, when we've got things to put out there, that hopefully people find interesting or entertaining, or both. So that's that. The other observation I'd make is, in terms of the sort of shows that we put out, having some more of those sort of, I want to say, sort of technique shows or how-to shows. And I'm not overly convinced, to be honest, because I think it's done much better elsewhere. You only have to look at the fabulous and former guest Matt Marash's site and just watch all of his Large Format Friday videos, which is kind of visual and really well done. And he just explains everything you ever need to know about large format photography from the ground up. And then you've got other YouTubers and also Facebook group member Todd Carr. He's done something similar as well. So, I mean, there are plenty of people out there doing this stuff really well on YouTube. Personally, I'm more interested in the ideas and the work of the people, and that's problematic in a talky podcast, of course. At this rate, we're just going to stop the podcast but having conversations about the work and about the ideas And if that strays into technique, well, that's fine. But, if that's guest led, really. So I'm not so hung up on gear talk, but maybe we do need to have that in the blend somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with all of that, especially because we're not at this point in time visual. So we'll have a conversation, we'll have our video on so we can see each other as we talk, and so we'll hold something up, and then we find ourselves saying, for the listeners, so and so is holding up this object, and it looks like this, and it sort of, feel like it leaves a bit wanting, if you will. But it was interesting. I was talking with Alana Eritrum about why she'd never picked up analog photography, film photography, and why a lot of women and minorities don't pick up film photography or large format photography. Is because the gear is very unapproachable. The technical talk is very intimidating. Digital is quite, to a certain extent, much easier to pick up, right? And I thought that was an interesting piece of feedback. And also, when I was talking with other prospective guests who were just like, well, the show could seem a bit geary. I'm not very gear oriented. If people have questions about technical things, I can't answer that. I don't know if I'm a good guest for you. And I was like, well, I don't really think that's what we want anyways, at least not all the time. So long story short, I think veering off into more about, the work people are doing, or about the state of photography, or, that kind of thing, makes the podcast more accessible, and I think is really rich ground for exploration. And of course we can get into gear. Like, everybody has their favorite piece of gear, like, and how they use it and whatnot. And that's also super interesting. But I don't necessarily know that we always have to have that be like the focus of the show.
See, I don't think looking back over the 40 odd shows, right at the beginning, we did some pretty lame attempts to explain large format photography. I don't think we did it terribly well. And we kind of had a bit of a running theme for the first few guests about, let's have a guest on who can talk about, shifting the plane of focus.
Right.
And again, that, it became a bit of a long-running joke about the Schleimflug principle and beer mats and stuff, and that was kind of fun. But by and large, I don't know what you think, Simon, because Eric's not been around that long, and I'm sure he hasn't gone back and listened to all previous 35 episodes or so since he joined us.
Truth.
My impression is that we've not been that focused on kind of gear, really. Probably more so in our chat at the beginning than we are with the guest. But what's your... Mm-hmm. Unless I've just blanked it all out.
Yeah, no, there's a few things in there. I mean, certainly the way that the podcast was originally set up, I don't know if I'm repeating myself on this one. It was largely the case of I hadn't got a clue what I was talking about, and I wanted to learn stuff, and you knew everything, and which proved to be untrue. But fortunately, we've had lots of guests on since then that have taught me everything, and now I'm a true expert and master in all things large format photography, and don't really need to learn anymore. But it's yeah. So really, the format of those shows changed because I wasn't asking as many stupid questions as I was. But as a counter argument, if you like, about process specific shows and things like that, I think there's definitely a place there, and I think it's a tough one. I mean, we have guests on that specialize in certain processes, like we did with Jim Fitzgerald and carbon printing. So I think there's always going to be room for that kind of show when there is a master of a certain genre, and we all wish to learn. And I think there are times where we can learn things about subjects that we actually think we know about, because different people approach their art in different ways, and we can always keep on learning. So I think there was, in fact, we'll say we used to try and have, if you like, 2 art shows and to 1 gear show. That was sort of how we actually planned the podcast, and we've moved away a little bit from that. And I think that, and we'll continue to put more genres in there, other areas of photography which are connected with large format, but are not necessarily all about large format, but there are areas that we can bring large format interest into. So that's going to happen. And the other thing that we definitely wish to do is, and we've talked about this a few times, and especially in the Facebook group, and that's diversity. And that's not diversity for the sake of diversity. It's more of a case of challenging ourselves not to look to people like us about the things that we do, because whether that be just from a case of just getting grey, balding, middle-aged white men with hats. But it's also getting, we've had female guests on the show. We wish to have people of colour, people that are not native English speakers, and we've had a few people that tick some of those boxes, and those shows have all been excellent. And I think that we need to continue to try hard. But as I say, it's not a tick box exercise. It's not because we're attempting to do that. It's a case of we want to learn from different people. And I know, Eric, you've got some pretty strong views on that.
I do. But also I think it's oh man, there's a lot to unpack there, and we don't have that much time to unpack it. But I think overall, large format photography definitely suffers from a lack of diversity, again, because it's, especially now, it's a sort of a luxury, right? Like, who can afford to play with a 4x5 or an 8x10, and also have the time to learn the technical things? It's an intimidating medium, and an expensive one to a certain extent, or at least it feels expensive. I got into it very cheap because the only way I could afford to do it. But for most folks, you look at the price of sheet film, and you look at the price of the cameras and the lenses, and it's expensive. It's intimidating. And I think that the large format sort of scene, in terms of the work that's done and the community, while vibrant and amazing, suffers a little bit from that lack of other folks able to get in. So on that hand, like, I would love to be able to foster as much of that, like getting more people into large format photography. It's amazing. Like, why would we not make it more accessible and bring more people in? Like, it can only get better from that. And also, in terms of people who do it already that we're not aware of, I think it expands our knowledge. It expands, how we see the medium. It expands on how we see the world. It expands everything by finding the folks that we're just not paying attention to, who are worthy of being paid attention to, because they're producing really interesting, insightful, thoughtful, beautiful work, right? But we just don't know about them because we just haven't looked. And it takes an effort to look. When I reach out to people who do pay attention to that sort of stuff, and I say, hey, I would love to talk to people outside of this group that we have. And I get a list of like, okay, here's like 6 women, 3 of them are women of color. Here's David Johnson. Here's this guy. Here's this guy. Here's email addresses. Like, they're there. We just need to start like actively looking for them,
And I think we are. We are working on that, and it's getting in touch with them. It's getting in conversation with them, and right. It does take time. It
does. And I also, just to wrap that up, also think that diversity isn't just in terms of gender and along racial lines, but also in content. To a certain extent, it's almost harder to find like photojournalists, for example, who use large format, just because the medium is what it is. It's like, it's not easy to go hucking around an 8x10 into the field to shoot a documentary, that kind of thing. But to expand the palette of what we show, and the range of what we show. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I think somebody in our Facebook group posted, like they like a fog shrouded fog shrouded scenic photograph as much as the next person does, but it's really refreshing to see content of type B.
Yeah.
And that's almost a greater challenge. Like, I'm looking really hard, because I've got a photojournalism background, to find photojournalists who use large format, besides David Burnett. David, if you're listening, hello, we'd love to talk to you. Besides David, like there's not a lot of high profile people to be found,
Well, why would there be? I mean, come on. I mean, it's like the tool for the job, isn't it? It's
absolutely. And what you can get paid for.
These days, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And what you can get paid for, right? Like, if you're a working photojournalist, you got to get paid. Digital gets you paid. The turnaround's fast. It's easy. You get paid. Makes total sense. You have to find somebody who's a lunatic like me, or who has the pull and the talent to get paid regardless, like David Burnett, right? So yeah, I would like to see if we can get, and I think we are going to get, especially with the next podcast, just different types of content as well, which I'm very excited about, by the way. I'm very excited about the next one.
Oh, mine. Now I've done some research.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be good.
Plenty of exciting things to come. And I'm just wondering, before we start to wind things down a little bit, are there any other things that you want to get off your chest? I'm going to do shout outs in a minute.
What, you mean like issues with you or anything?
Find your damn video camera cord.
Yes, I will do one day. When I've tied up.
I swear, I'm going to buy you one. I'm going to order it. It's going to get shipped. Just promise not to lose it.
Yeah.
Love you, but
Okay. Well, let me. I've got a shout out, which is something that's it's hot news. Was a day ago in the Large Format Photography Podcast Facebook group, and that was a post by Mike Walker of Walker Cameras, and he is contacted Snyder with a view to get hold of some center filters for the 72, 90mm and 150mm XL lenses, and he's arranged that he can get these made as a batch, but he needs 10 people to order them. So if you're interested in getting a brand new center filter for a Snyder 72, 90 or 150 XL lens, I don't know if I noticed it doesn't say the 47 in there. But either way, if you get hold of Mike Walker, and he's got a website, if you type in Mike Walker Cameras, I'm sure you'll get his email address from there, and you can get in touch, or just go onto the Facebook group and find him in there and find the post from yesterday. What's the date today? Just to help with that.
14th yesterday.
Yeah, so that was on the 14th that post appeared in the Large Format Photography.
He did give a warning that I don't think he actually used the term reassuringly expensive, but
yeah,
that's what they are. Anything that advertises something and doesn't put a price on, immediately I shy away from.
Yeah. So if you want a new one of those and you can afford one, then get in touch with Mike Walker, and hopefully they'll have enough people that want to do that. They can order 10 of them to make it happen.
I'd like to get Mike on the show. Really, I've been trying to get him to come on to the Lensless podcast, because he makes some great lensless cameras, and I don't know why he won't. Really, I've chatted with him off air, on telephone, and he's a good guy, but Come on, Mike, if you're listening, I think come on. You can be one of our token gear guests.
Come talk to us, Mike.
Okay, so that's my shout out. Andrew, have you got one or two?
No, don't think so.
Okay, Eric.
Let's see. Do I have any shout outs? Well, I mean, I shout out to everybody who came to the movie showing on the 2nd. It was a lot of fun. Shout out to Hamish for helping for posting the article.
Amish. Who's Hamish?
Amish.
Sorry. Bollocks to both of you.
Who's Hamish?
Hamish, is that how it's spelled?
Yeah, or you can drop the H and call him just Amish.
Amish. Yeah. He makes furniture as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, well, that fine gentleman for posting that the article that I wrote on the Butterfield trip, and again for everybody coming out, it was a really fun time. I really enjoyed it, and I hope they enjoyed it as well. And then last but not least, to Alana Airtrim for trusting me to build this lens for her really monumental project. It's giving me something to do in lockdown to keep my sanity and also feel like I'm contributing to something good. So thank you, Alana, for that.
Okay, well, let's just say thank you to those people that have donated to us via coffee.com since the last time we were here, and that will be Johnny Brown, will be the first person who actually donated on the day that we've actually recorded the last show, saying, "Hi guys, love the show and wanted to say thanks for what you do. Sending you a few cups from Venice Beach, California. Have a great holiday and stay safe, everyone." Was there more? Best regards, Johnny Brown. So thank you very, very much, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny.
And we also have Billy Sanford, who says, "Cheers, have a round on me." Thank you very much, Billy. And Calais Mether, maybe. But she says, "Thank you. Always great discussions," and I do. So yeah, thank you very much. And we do have emails, which we still haven't got round to reading. We haven't got a huge amount, but there are emails that do need to be read out. So we'll get round to those at some point. So that's it. So Eric, how can people keep up with the kind of things that you do outside of this show?
Andrew?
Huh?
Hey?
Who's asking you?
Who's first? Oh, me?
Yeah, that was
the only Eric amongst them.
It was the Eric bit that sort of should have given it away.
I missed it.
I'm mixing it up.
Okay. What's going on? Just Instagram, Eric H. Matthew on Instagram. You'll see the lens build, the lens build in progress, and random photos of frustrations and stuff around the house, and bunnies, always bunnies.
Yeah, I might just start to mix this bit up, just in the same way as Andrew tries to put me off by saying hello to me every week. So I'll just keep the two of you on your toes. So, and Andrew, how about yourself? How can people keep up with things you're up to?
I'm mostly Warboys Snapper on most media. If not, I sometimes go by my name, which is Andrew Bartram. And you can find me every couple of weeks now. We've started putting out shows on the Lensless podcast. We're just finished show 100, where interestingly, we probably get, I haven't done the math, or the maths, as we say over here. We probably get at least 50% female guests, and with no trouble at all finding female people, ladies, using pinhole photography, and I don't know why that is. I could have a white middle-aged male view on it, but I won't. But that's kind of interesting. So you can find me hanging out in the Facebook group for the Lensless podcast, and on our own super duper Facebook group. And if you answer the intro question, I'll let you in. If you don't answer it, I won't. So on your head be it.
Yeah. And
Instagram, Warboys Snapper, and things like that.
And if somebody wants to write into the show, what's the best way of doing that, Andrew?
Eric, what's our email address?
Yeah, Eric, what is our email address, Eric?
largeformatphotographypodcast at gmail.com.
It is. First time out. Well done.
Did the question mark after that, inform you that I was just making a highly educated guess?
Yeah, it was. You've been paying attention. That's great. That's more than our friend in the fence does, who had his earphones out, so he didn't actually hear what I just said about him, which is great.
It was highly complimentary.
Yeah, completely. So for me, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is also almost the name of my website, simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where you can buy the aforementioned things. Well, you can't today, but hopefully soon. This week, I'm going to have large format stuff on my website. It'll also be on eBay as well, but my website's a better place to go, especially if you want it shipping internationally. It's a bit cheaper via my website. So that's all good. And on Instagram, we do have an Instagram account. It's the name of this podcast. And not a huge amount goes on there. So we've got 1,000 followers now, which is incredible. We really should do more with that Instagram account. But seeing that I seem to be in charge of it, I wouldn't hold anybody's breath on that one. But thank you very much to those people that are following us on Instagram. It's very good of you. Our music, our wonderful music that everybody loves without any exceptions, is by Kevin McLeod of Incompetech.com, and it's called Two Finger Johnny, and it's playing right now. And that's it. So we're going to be back. We might be back next week, although he might be in 2 weeks. We'll see. We've got to work this one out, because we're going to be chatting to our next guest very soon. So thanks for listening to another short show of us rabbiting on about stuff. Normal service will resume very, very quickly. So that's it. So we'll see you again next time. So goodbye.
Happy New Year.